Hello everyone, and today we are going to be taking a look at a cheap mid-range AMD Ryzen gaming PC. Now I built my AMD PC in sort of 2014, mid-2014. Cost me around £750 and it was a mid-range. Bear in mind this was mid-range. It had a 280X and an AMD FX 8350 was in that system. Cost me about 750 in total. That was building it myself, but you can get an AMD Ryzen 5. This system that I'm going to be showing you today is 599 glorious British pounds. And that's pretty good for a mid-range 1080p 60 FPS machine. So we're going to start with the CPU, which obviously is an AMD. We're looking at an AMD Ryzen 5 1500X 3.5 gigahertz, boosts up to 3.7 gigahertz is the max turbo frequency. It's the 1500X, 4 cores, 8 threads. It's all you need, really. There's no real need to get the 1600 or the 1600X. 6 cores, 12 threads, not necessary. 4 cores and 8 threads are all you need if you're just gaming. Will do you fine. Does have XFR. This is the extended frequency range, which the X series has. So it will overclock itself based on the cooling that it gets. That's what it does. £182, that's quite cheap. Equivalent i5s, you're looking at non-overclockable i5s. You know, the i5 7400 is in that price range. Not overclockable though. I mean, you're looking at, for the K series i5s, you're looking at I think the 7600K is £230, 225 I think you're looking at for a 6600K these days. Quite expensive really, but the Ryzen 5 1500X is a decent buy. It's a decent alternative. The i5 generally will outperform it in games, but the Ryzen 5 1500X costs less. And 4 cores, 8 threads, like we say, is everything you will need. And we'll move on to the motherboard. We've gone for a MSI B350M Mortar Micro ATX AM4 motherboard. It's got everything you need, really. It is a Micro ATX board. It is the B350 we've gone for now. I think it's the A370X and B350 are the two that are overclockable. So this gives you the option to overclock here. £78.99, quite expensive for the board. I mean, this is one, but it's a good investment for the future, I think, because gives you the option to overclock, as we say. You know, you can always fit an aftermarket cooler and use the XFR to just sort of get the extended frequency range to get higher clock speeds out of your 1500X, and that's just extra performance for free there, essentially. So you're paying now, but long term it will do. It's got everything you need. It's got 4 DDR4 memory slots. It will supports up to 3200 megahertz of DDR4, so it's pretty decent, actually pretty fast. It's got your USB 3 headers. It doesn't have SLI or Crossfire support, but we're on a budget, so I don't think you should expect SLI or Crossfire on a budget. For RAM, we have gone for the ADATA XPG Z1 8GB. It's 2 4GB sticks. DDR4 at 2800 megahertz. Not too bad. I mean, pretty cheap. £50 for that is not bad for 8GB. Again, 8GB if you're running a budget 1080p system that's just doing gaming, it's okay. 8GB is fine. That'll get us through it. For storage, we are going for a Seagate Barracuda 1TB 3.5-inch 7200 RPM hard drive. $37.99 for a terabyte. It's 38p per gigabyte, which is pretty decent, actually. Not too bad there. Again, no SSD. An SSD is an upgrade that you can add later on. A terabyte should be enough. I mean, for a similarly priced SSD, you're looking at 120 gigs, which, considering games, I mean, I'm downloading GTA 5 and it's 67.96 gigabytes right now. I'm just looking at that as I'm recording this. I'm downloading GTA 5 again. Huge size. These games are, you know, 50 plus, 30 to 50 gigabytes is your average game these days, your average big AAA game. So a terabyte for now will do. Obviously, you're going to want to upgrade that. You can always add extra storage. The motherboard on this, I think, is four SATA ports, so you can always add a second hard drive or even a third hard drive. It does have RAID support as well, so you can have, a few hard drives in a RAID array as well. So, again, on a budget, the Seagate Barracuda one will do the job. It's 7,200 RPM. 1 terabyte. You could get 2 terabytes as an option as well, but again, we're sticking to the budget. For the graphics card, the most important thing, what we're going to do is go for the brand new AMD RX 570. Now we've gone for the 4GB model. Because the 8 gig models don't have any prices yet. I haven't seen many prices for them yet. Not out yet. This is a pre-order. $175.99. Now the RX 570, we've gone for this gigabyte one because it was cheap. Simply, there's plenty of others available, but for under £200. For that under £200 price tag, 4 gigabytes of VRAM is enough, I think, for 1080p these days. You could get the 8. If you can get the 8 for cheaper, I would go with that. But again, I haven't seen much pricing because this is quite new. These cards, the RX 570 can match the RX 480 in a lot of games these days and is under £200. So that's fairly decent, a fairly beefy card there for 1080p. 60 FPS. You should be able to get that on Ultra with most games. Some games you may have to turn down a few settings to get it. The RX 580 is another option again, but again is more expensive as well. I think the 570 is kind of the sweet spot there. Should be able to match, at least match or outperform the GTX 1060 3GB model. It won't outperform the 6GB model, but then the 6GB model generally is over £200. So for under £200, you're getting a decent card for the money, I think. I think it's a good card. I think overall it's kind of the sweet spot between price to performance. You could get a 580 is a nice option for you, but the 570 isn't a bad buy for the money. For the power supply, we have gone for an EVGA 500 watt. It's an 80 plus. Certified ATX power supply, £41. Not bad, really. It's more than you need. The power draw for this is 300 watts, so gives you a bit of overhead if you ever want to do any upgrades to the system. But yeah, it's pretty decent. It's non-modular, just to save a bit of money. It's a bit of a bugger if it's non-modular. That's the only thing. It can be a bit of a pain in the arse, non-modular, but it saves you money. Again, it's extra money, and when we're on a budget, money's tight. I think you can just forgo the modular power supply for that. Again, I always pick a branded power supply. You don't want to get something cheap. EVGA do have a good track record with their power supplies, and they're reasonably priced. 500 watts is more than enough that you're going to need. For the case, we have gone for the Thermaltake Versa H15 Micro ATX mid-tower case. Really, the case is kind of subjective. I just picked this one. It was £31.97. It's got everything you need. Really, it's got plenty of space for the power supply, plenty of space for hard drives. It's got space for expansion. If you picked a Micro ATX case, you could pick an ATX case, ATX mid-tower case. It's got, 3 internal 3.5-inch bays as well. It's got USB front panels. It has a minimum video card length of 315 millimeters. It doesn't say how long the gigabyte card is. Doesn't actually say how long it is. It is 24 centimeters, so 240 millimeters. There you go. They'll fit in that case anyway, no problem. With room to spare. Again, you can pick whatever case you want. I just picked this one because it was there, and it fills the need. It's got, plenty of fans on it for expansions. You could add water cooling to it. You could add an AIO water cooler to it. No problem, really. It'll take one of them without any issues. It'll have certain space to upgrade as well. That's what you want out of a case. It looks okay, I think. You can pick any case you want, really. But so the total cost of this build is £599. Glorious British pounds. If the fucking scroll's broken on my mouse again. £599.31. Now I will put a link to the PC part picker page that we picked this up, that we did this build on. But yeah, I think not a bad little PC. Should do most games 1080p. Will be able to achieve 60 FPS. Should be able to achieve 60. You may have to drop a few settings in some games, but I think for the money, that's pretty good. Because normally for a mid-range PC in the UK, you're certainly looking at sort of 700, 6 to 700, and this is at the lower end of that. So that's a pretty decent thing. I think Ryzen really has given us, you know, a decent option when it comes to CPU, because basically it was Intel, it was go Intel or, you know, go budget unless you were on a budget. So if you had any kind of mid-range budget, you would have to buy an i5. Problem is, we can't overclock that i5. We can overclock the Ryzen. All the Ryzens have unlocked multipliers and are overclockable. Again, for upgrade path, again, you could add another 8 gigabytes of RAM to that. You could spend another £50 in about a year's time. Adding certainly an SSD is something I would add to that for an upgrade path, as well as maybe an AIO water cooler or an aftermarket cooler, even something like the Hyper 212 Evo that everybody buys. I mean, again, it'll give you better cooling and give you better overclocking results with that CPU as well. So, I mean, not a bad CPU for the money, and not a bad system overall for the money there. So I would say it's good to see that Ryzen is, you know, at least bringing the cost of PC gaming down, which is nice to see. But anyway, that is all for this video, so thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again soon, and goodbye.